And right now, we're going to talk about a story of perseverance and one that shows that anything is possible at any age. Jeff Ellis of West Bloomfield is a 65-year-old grandfather, and he's been lifting weights for over 4 decades and has been a consistent competitor at the Michigan Senior Olympics. Back in November of 2023, he tore his rotator cuff during a routine bench press session, and it looked like his career was over. But after a surgical repair from the great people at Henry Ford Hospital, Jeff got back to work, and after many months of recovery, he ended up taking home a gold medal in powerlifting and was able to set a brand new record in the process. Jeff joins us right now to talk about his journey with powerlifting. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. How are you, Jake?
Really, really great. Really fascinated to be getting into this conversation. First and foremost, how did you get involved with powerlifting, and what has kept you motivated to compete over the decades?
Well, I started lifting weights when I was in high school. Basically to get ready for football. And then when I went on to college at Michigan State, I continued the weightlifting. And weightlifting, they had a powerlifting team that was a club sport. And I worked out with a number of the individual power lifters. And eventually, by the time my junior year started, I started competing in powerlifting. Really enjoyed it. And then after I graduated college, I continued lifting weights, but stopped lifting weights competitively. And then when I turned 50, I found out the Michigan Senior Olympics has a bench press and deadlift competition. So I've been doing the bench press competition ever since.
That's absolutely right. And you have had incredible success with those events. Of course, as we just mentioned, you did suffer a rotator cuff tear just a couple of years ago. And my dad has dealt with a rotator cuff tear, and it is no joke. I know exactly how taxing that can be. What was going through your mind when that happened?
I went and worked normal workout. I did my first 2 sets on the bench, no problems. Third set, my last rep, as I was bringing the weights up, I felt something in my shoulder. It was like a dull pain and stiffness, and lost all strength in the shoulder. And it turned out I had a bone spur underneath my supraspinatus tendon that tore a hole right through the tendon. The tendon was just constantly rubbing over the bone spur. And when that happened, I yelled to my workout partner to grab the weights. He was spotting me on the bench. We got the weights back up on the rack, and at that point I knew I did something to my shoulder.
Yes, sounds incredibly painful, and very happy that you were able to bounce back from that. And apparently you did this through the help of something called a bioinductive patch factor. And the bioinductive patch, that played a huge factor into your healing process. Were you familiar with that process beforehand?
No, I had never heard of it. I initially went to one orthopedic doctor who said I have to have surgery. Wanted to get a second opinion. Went to see Dr. Mew. Felt much more comfortable with her, and she was very highly recommended by both my primary care doctor and a physical therapist friend of mine that has treated me several times. And when I met with her, she took the time, answered all my questions, brought up this patch. As I stated, I had never heard of it, but it is supposed to promote healing with tendons in the rotator cuff, and obviously the results speak for themselves.
That's absolutely right. And obviously you had the surgery, but then the recovery, that I would imagine it might be more challenging than the surgery itself. What was the most challenging part of your recovery, especially in those first few weeks after surgery?
Well, I had the surgery in January of 2024. Actually got back to competing. It was March of 2025. So it was a little over a year after the surgery I was able to get back competing. But the challenging part was my arm was in a sling. I started physical therapy week after the surgery, just doing the passive movements. And I did all the exercises they gave me to do at home. I did those very diligently. Showed up at physical therapy, pushed myself, and within 3 months after the surgery, the physical therapist gave me the okay to get back to doing the weight machines with a lot of restrictions. Also, I was able to go back to Kung Fu, which I've been participating in for a few years. I was able to do that with a number of restrictions as well, and was able to gradually add more and more to my weight workout. I eventually started with the bench press with just the bar, worked with that, and when I got to the point where I was able to go through the bench press motion without any pain, I started adding weights to it, and haven't had any issues with the shoulder since then.
Well, that's great, and it's awesome to see that you have bounced back and have had continued success with this sport. For those just joining us right now, I'm talking with Jeff Ellis, powerlifter for the National Senior Games for the 2025 year, talking about coming back from a painful rotator cuff injury. Now, Jeff, many people your age might have considered stepping away from competition after something like that happened. What inspired you to come back and to come back even stronger?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was a goal. I'm very goal-oriented. Setting a goal of getting back to lifting weights competitively was one of my priorities. And I have been lifting weights seriously for approximately 48 years now. So it's a way of life. I try to get my exercise in every day, be it weightlifting or cardio. And it's something I just really enjoy and have not been able to get out of my system.
Well, that's awesome. And what did it mean to you to personally return to the Michigan Senior Olympics and not only compete, but to set a brand new record in the process?
I've competed in the Senior Olympics 22 times. I've won 20 gold medals. I developed a great friendship with a number of the other competitors there. Obviously, we have something in common that's lifting weights, and we're able to compare notes. And I actually, in August of 2024, volunteered to work at the weightlifting competition for the Senior Olympics. It was a little frustrating watching everyone participate when I had just really started getting back to working out, but wasn't at a level where I was able to compete yet.
Well, you had all that incredible success at the event back in March. What are you looking forward to for this year's National Senior Games, and how are you preparing mentally and physically for the event?
Well, I've been working really hard. I actually started working with a trainer, something I had never done before, and had added some weight to my bench press. But unfortunately, 2 weeks ago, I was playing pickleball with my wife, suffered an injury, and it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to compete in the Senior Games.
That is unfortunate, but is there hope that you will return for future Senior Games?
That is the goal. Dr. Mew, who actually operated on my shoulder, has now got to do a tendon reattachment on my tricep from the spill I took playing pickleball. And she's well aware that the goal is to get back to lifting weights competitively. It's something that I just really don't want to give up.
Well, I can't wait to see that happen. I know that you've still got many, many great events in the future. What message do you hope your story sends to other seniors about aging, fitness, and overcoming setbacks?
It's really a matter of priorities. I'm a CPA. I hear from a lot of coworkers, well, once tax season's over with, I'm going to start exercising. Well, you really have to make it a priority. You got to make time in every day to do it. If it really becomes a top priority, you're going to find a way to get your workouts in and do your exercise. And you just really have to stick with it. Perseverance definitely pays off. And it's definitely a priority. Now with my pickleball injury, I can't lift weights. I'm just doing more cardio.
Well, you got to start somewhere, and I'm sure you're going to be bouncing back even better for this next event. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today here on The Splash Live.
All right, thank you for having me.